My name is Alexis Parker. I'm 17, a senior at Westwood High School, a small place in the middle of suburban nowhere. It was just an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, and like always, I'd headed to the library to catch up on some assignments. The space was quiet, with only a few other students scattered among the shelves. The librarian was at her desk, tapping away on her computer, and everything felt calm. That is, until the intercom crackled to life, filling the silence with an announcement that froze me in my seat. This is a lockdown. Find shelter immediately. My heart started to race as I looked around. Some students rushed to the back of the library, crouching behind shelves, while I slid off my chair and ducked behind a nearby bookshelf. I forced myself to breathe, trying to stay calm, but something was off. Right by the library entrance, close to the door, I noticed an abandoned backpack lying there. It hadn't been there before, and it definitely didn't belong to anyone who had been here. Minutes went by, but the tension only grew. The librarian was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding somewhere in the back room. I pulled out my phone, trying to text my mom, but there was no response. Then, just as I was about to put my phone away, a new message flashed across the screen. It was from an unknown number, and it said just 2 words: "Keep quiet." I stared at the message, my heart pounding even harder. My mind raced with questions. Who was this? Why were they telling me to keep quiet? I didn't recognize the number, and as I sat there, trying to process everything, another message popped up. This time, it read, "He's close." Goosebumps spread up my arms. I slowly peered over the edge of the bookshelf, scanning the room, but everything looked normal. I couldn't see anyone new here, no one standing suspiciously or acting out of place. I checked the message again, hoping it might somehow make sense, but it just made my anxiety worse. The minutes dragged on, stretching into what felt like hours. Outside the library windows, I could see faint flashes of red and blue lights. The police were there. Relief washed over me, but then a thought crossed my mind. If the police were here, why hadn't they entered the school? I couldn't see any officers around, and the lights just flickered outside, as if taunting us with a sense of safety that wasn't really there. Then, another message appeared: "Don't move." At this point, fear was twisting my stomach into knots. I held my phone so tight that my fingers started to go numb. Every nerve in my body was on edge. The sound of my own breathing was too loud in the silence, and I clamped a hand over my mouth, desperate to stay quiet. Whoever was sending these messages seemed to know where I was, what I was doing, and it made my skin crawl. I heard a faint shuffle from the other side of the library. I couldn't see anyone, but the sound was unmistakable. Someone was moving around, stepping softly across the carpet. My heart thundered in my chest, and I sank lower, pressing myself against the bookshelf as if I could disappear into it. Another message appeared, closer. The words felt like a cold hand gripping my throat. Every instinct told me to run, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I was paralyzed, stuck between wanting to flee and needing to know if someone was truly here, someone who shouldn't be. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside the library. They were slow and deliberate, pausing right by the entrance. I held my breath, straining to hear anything else. The silence was suffocating, and I could almost feel the presence of someone on the other side of the library door. A moment later, the footsteps retreated, fading down the hall. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. My phone buzzed again, and this time the message was longer. "He was in there with you. Don't look." I couldn't help it. I looked. I scanned every shadow, every empty space between the shelves, and then my eyes fell on the abandoned backpack by the door. In the eerie quiet, a chilling thought crept into my mind. Had the person with the gun left it there? Just as my fear reached a breaking point, the intercom crackled again, and the principal's voice filled the room. "Lockdown is lifted. Please make your way to the nearest exit in an orderly fashion." I didn't need to be told twice. I practically bolted out of the library, My legs shaky as I joined the crowd of students filing out of the building. Outside, the flashing lights of police cars were brighter, but I still didn't see any officers going in. Later, I found out the horrifying truth. A former student, someone I vaguely recognized from a couple of years back, had broken into the school armed. He'd managed to slip inside before anyone noticed, and he'd been moving through the hallways. The police had arrived just in time to stop him, but I couldn't shake the lingering horror. That backpack, left by the door, it had been his. And those messages, they never traced who sent them. My name is Casey Walker. I'm 16, a junior at Northwood High School in a quiet town where nothing much ever happens. Lunchtime was my favorite part of the day. I got to catch up with my friends, laugh, and relax before heading back to classes. Today seemed like any other day, until I got a text that changed everything. It was from my best friend, Chloe. The message just said, "Someone's here. Get somewhere safe." At first, I thought it had to be a joke. I looked around the cafeteria, expecting to see Chloe nearby, ready to laugh. But she wasn't there. Everyone else seemed normal, going about their lunch, unaware of anything wrong. I quickly texted back, "What do you mean? Where are you?" and waited, staring at the screen. No reply. Then the intercom crackled, and the principal's voice cut through the noise, calm but tense. "Attention, students and staff. We are going into lockdown. Please find the nearest safe location immediately." My heart skipped a beat, and my stomach twisted as I looked around. The cafeteria grew silent as everyone realized what was happening. Teachers hurried us to the back, away from the windows. I crouched down with the others, clutching my phone, my hands shaking as I sent another message to Chloe. "Are you okay? Where are you?" But there was still no reply. Minutes passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. Some students whispered, trying to figure out what was going on, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. I just kept staring at my phone, praying for a response from Chloe. I knew she wouldn't joke about something like this, and if there was someone dangerous in the school, I didn't want to finish that thought. Time dragged on, the silence in the cafeteria almost unbearable. Finally, my phone buzzed, but it wasn't from Chloe. It was a notification from the school's emergency alert system. "Remain in lockdown until further notice. Law enforcement on site. Law enforcement." My throat went dry. If the police were here, this wasn't a drill or prank. My mind kept circling back to Chloe's message. Someone's here. Who was here? And what did they want? I typed out one more message. "Chloe, please answer me. I'm scared." Nothing. After what felt like hours, the intercom crackled again. This time, it was the principal's voice. "Students and staff, the lockdown is now lifted. Please exit the building in an orderly fashion." Relief washed over me, but I still felt a heavy sense of dread. I moved with the crowd, pushing toward the exit, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. I kept scanning the halls, hoping to see Chloe, but she was nowhere. Outside, police officers stood by their cars, talking quietly. A few teachers looked on, faces tense. I found one of Chloe's friends, Sarah, and asked if she'd seen her. She was in the bathroom when the lockdown started. Sarah said, her face pale. She said she'd be right back, but I haven't seen her since. My stomach dropped. I showed Sarah the messages Chloe had sent me. Her eyes widened, her face going white. Panic rising, I ran back toward the main building, desperate to find her. A few minutes later, a teacher stopped me, urging me to wait outside. But I couldn't shake the dread creeping over me. Finally, after what seemed like another eternity, a police officer approached. His face was serious, and my stomach twisted even tighter. "We found something," he said quietly. "A phone in the girls' bathroom. It matches your friend's description." My mind went blank. Chloe's phone, just left there. That didn't make sense. I asked if she was okay, if she was somewhere else, but the officer shook his head. "No sign of her yet," he said gently. "But we're looking." The hours stretched on, and still no one had seen or heard from Chloe. A stranger, a man no one recognized, had somehow entered the school, asking around for a specific student. The police suspected he'd been searching for someone in particular, and a horrifying thought rooted itself in my mind. The person he was looking for was Chloe. Somehow he'd found her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her last text, her warning. "Someone's here. Get somewhere safe." She'd been trying to protect me, even as she was in danger herself. The police never found her, just her phone on the floor in the girls' bathroom. Every time I walk by that door now, I almost feel her presence, as if she's still there, calling out to me, warning me. Ready to feel a chill run down your spine? Join us in the shadows and dive into the world of terrifying tales and creepy encounters. Subscribe now to Shivers in the Dark and hit the bell so you never miss a story that keeps you up at night. My name is Sarah Whitman, and I'm a junior at Oak Ridge High. I'm 17, and my younger brother, Adam, is a sophomore. School has always felt like a pretty safe place, even a bit boring most days, but today that feeling shattered. It all started in the middle of 5th period. Our English teacher, Mrs. Lopes, was giving a lecture when the intercom interrupted her with a loud beep, followed by the principal's voice, oddly stiff. "Teachers, please initiate lockdown procedures immediately." The room fell silent. Mrs. Lopes rushed to the door, securing it, pulling down the blinds. All of us exchanged anxious glances, wondering if it was a drill, but something felt off. I tried texting my brother, Adam, hoping he'd tell me he was somewhere safe. He was just down the hall in his biology class, but my message didn't go through. I sent it again. "Adam, are you okay?" No reply. We sat in silence, every second feeling longer than the last. The room was filled with the soft beeping of phones and nervous whispers. I overheard someone say they'd heard something happened in the junior hallway. A girl named Emma whispered that someone might have been hurt. I felt a cold chill creep over me, and my stomach dropped. I couldn't shake the feeling that Adam was somehow in the middle of it all. Minutes turned into hours, and no one came to update us. I checked my phone obsessively, praying for a message from Adam, but my screen remained blank. I started imagining the worst, the thought of him hurt or scared making it hard to breathe. Every little noise outside the door made my heart race, and the silence in the room felt crushing, like we were all waiting for something terrible. Finally, the intercom crackled again. "Students, the lockdown has been lifted. Please exit the building in an orderly fashion." Everyone stood, some relieved, others still shaken. I bolted out the door, frantically searching for Adam in the crowded hallways. I was about to panic when I saw him near the office, standing alone. His face was pale, his eyes distant. I rushed over, practically throwing myself at him. "Are you okay?" I asked, gripping his shoulders. He nodded, but he didn't look at me. His hands were shaking. "Sarah." I was in the hallway. I saw everything. I felt my heart drop. I wanted to ask what he meant, but the haunted look in his eyes stopped me. I led him out of the building, away from the noise, hoping some fresh air would help him calm down. As we stood outside, he finally started talking, his voice trembling. There was a guy, a student. He was yelling, shouting at Mr. Fields, the assistant principal. I heard something about a grade. I tried to go back to my classroom, but before I could, Adam's voice trailed off, his hands shaking even more now. I didn't know what to do. I thought he was going to hurt everyone in the hallway. The police and teachers had already blocked off the area, but Adam had been close enough to see the whole thing unfold. He didn't get hurt, but it was clear he was deeply shaken. His voice grew softer. The guy didn't even look angry. He looked like he was in a trance. We later learned that a junior student had attacked Mr. Fields over a failing grade. The whole incident was brushed off as a personal dispute, with the school administration trying to play down what had happened. They made it sound like it was just a misunderstanding that got out of hand. But Adam's face told a different story. He'd seen something terrifying, something real that they were trying to hide. In the days that followed, Adam was different. He barely spoke, barely slept. Every time he heard a loud noise or someone raised their voice, he'd flinch. The school tried to move on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something much darker had happened that day, something they didn't want us to know. It wasn't just a personal dispute. It was a breakdown, a flash of violence that no one could undo. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if the lockdown hadn't been called in time, or if Adam had been standing just a few feet closer. I wanted to believe the school's explanation, to trust that it was over, but the fear in my brother's eyes told me otherwise.